Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this unscheduled meeting of Council. It is Tuesday, 13th of May, and we are here to hear from some people who have made submissions to the draft budget. To start the official proceedings, I would like to acknowledge that we are meeting on Jara country, of which the members and elders of the Jara community and their forebears have been custodians for many centuries and have performed age-old ceremonies of celebration, initiation and renewal. We acknowledge their living culture and their unique role in the life of this region. This meeting, like all council meetings, will be audio and video recorded and will be made available to the public via electronic media, including YouTube. We have all councillors present today. There are and all of our directors and our CEO and our manager of finance. We have no apologies or leave of absence. Councillors, are there any declarations of interest or conflicts of interest? No, and we have none of those either. Under officer reports, we have nil for community, nil for environment, 4.3 economy, and 4.3.1 2025-2026 budget hearing of public submissions. So we do have a recommendation here, councillors, which I assume we need a motion to go with. Has anyone got this motion in front of them right now? Thank you, Councillor Maltby. Are you moving? What would you like to move? Fantastic. And that is that Council notes the submissions to the proposed annual budget 25-26 and hears the presentations in support of those submissions and considers the submissions to the proposed annual budget 25-26 prior to adoption of the budget at the meeting of Council on Tuesday, 17 June 2025. Do I have a seconder? Fantastic. I'm going to call this one pretty procedural. So all in favour? Fantastic. That motion is carried. My seconder was Councillor Driscoll. Sorry. All right. So we're here today to hear from everyone in the gallery today. You've all made submissions to the draft budget, which you will be able to speak to. So the way this is going to work, I have a list here with names on it. I'm going to just read it out in the order that they appear to me. You'll need to come up to the podium and speak into the mic because we do need to pick it up on the recording. You've got 3 minutes to speak to your submission. We've got some very sophisticated timekeeping going on up here. So at 2 minutes and 30 seconds, you'll hear a noise that will say you've got 30 seconds left. You'll hear another noise at 3 minutes that will say, stop, your time is up. If you're in the middle of a sentence, do finish your sentence. But if you keep talking, I'm going to ask you to stop because it's really important that everyone has an equitable amount of time to speak. And also, we don't want to be here all night, any of us. So I guess the other thing too, and I'm sure this is not going to be a problem, but as it is a meeting of council, we just be mindful, I guess, of the way we're speaking to each other. We will obviously offer you the same courtesy, but remembering we're all here doing our best, and I can understand, budget time can be very challenging and frustrating, but if you can, speak to us with respect and politeness, that would be really fantastic. There was one more thing I wanted to say. Oh, the other thing, when you've had your 3 minutes and you've given us what you want to give us, we may ask questions of you. So if you can stay up at the mic in case councillors have any questions. Again, it's not like a wiggle around to have much more time. Please just answer the questions that we're asking because in our brains, we're just trying to figure out, get to the crux of it and I guess figure out anything that you might have missed or that we're a little bit confused about. So I'm sorry there's all these rules up front. I'm not a very ruly person, but this is the way it needs to be so that we can hear from all of you and that it is fair across the board. All right, I'm just going to have a sip of water and then we'll begin. All right, So first on my list is Rachel Stewart, representing Castlemaine Safe Space Working Group for the initiative of Castlemaine Safe Space. Rachel.
Thank you. You've got our budget submission, so you will see in front of you this graph that shows you that our suicide rates in our local area are significantly higher than that of the state and of Australia. Recently, we've had quite a few suicides in our area, and I'm sure that more than one of you would have been touched by the loss of those people. The Victorian government states that it's the local government's role to help them support community level mental health and wellbeing. The Mount Alexander Shire Council has a 10-year community vision with 3 pillars, one of which is to have a healthy, connected and inclusive community, physically and mentally healthy, and to have access to accessible services. And the Castlemaine Safe Space is playing an important role and a practical role in helping council to achieve this pillar. We're the first rural safe space in Australia. We've welcomed over 750 guest visits since we opened nearly 3 years ago, and we've held over 300 sessions. Our guest numbers continue to increase, as do those of our peer volunteers. Clearly, our community members want to support others, and the people in our community want and need to be supported. But we need a premises to operate from. We've recently secured that premises. We're asking council for a one-off seeding grant to help us get our feet in the ground and to keep this premises open. Then we can focus on listening to our guests, whether they're distressed or isolated or lonely or contemplating suicide, and put in the practical footwork to help council achieve the pillar and to help this community stay safe and mentally healthy. I'm now going to hand over to Jeremy, who's going to continue to tell you about some of the programs we've got in place at the moment.
Thank you, Rachel, and thank you, councillors. Safe Space is a physical space down at 74 Mostyn Street, but it's not just a physical space where anyone of any age, any sex, any gender, any demographic can come along. We're also starting to breach out in the community. We're going to wakes, we're going to LGBTIQ events, we're going to school events, we're going to markets, we're being asked to come to gender-based violence events. So our volunteers, which are increasing in number regularly, are now being asked to step away from that, which is great. We've got 2 rosters going per week. We've got 1 I have to go to now. We're going to increase that to 3. We're getting people who are actually coming to want to use the space. And also, just as importantly, we know there's an issue with food, and Safe Space in conjunction with Council and Castlemaine Community House are now part of a food relief network that we're part of, that I'm personally representing Safe Space. So as well as having a safe space there for anyone and everyone, which is non-clinical, non-judgmental, now we're going to have space for food relief. So we're going to have food pantries in there accessible during Safe Space rosters. We're hoping to have a 24/7 food relief. So I know Castlemaine Community House do a wonderful job within certain hours. We want something that's 24/7 because often people, they feel embarrassed and shamed to come along during the day. So we want a 24/7 one. We want people to come along and get food. We want people to come and be comfortable and just feel safe there. Thank you.
Thank you, and excellent sticking to time.
How's that?
Really set the tone there. Thank you, Rachel and Jeremy. Councillors, do we have any questions? Councillor Driscoll.
Thanks, mate. Jeremy, just broadly, where does a Safe Space get their funds?
Yep, no worries. So originally we had 3 years of seed funding with Roses in the Ocean, which are a peak body around lived experience and suicide prevention. That has now come to an end. And we also previously have got money through obviously council and Mount Alexander Shire Council and through Murray Primary Health Network. So we still are trying to access money as well in other places, but we just think, that's systemic change. We'd really like to see that, a lot of that money coming from council. Yep.
Councillor Maddock.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Rachel. What would be the consequence of the likely consequence of not getting this funding?
Likely consequence is we may have to, we're hoping to continue the leases, and like I said, we are pursuing other avenues. We don't want to be totally reliant on council or put our eggs in one basket, so to speak. So if in the extreme issue that we do not get any more funding, then we'll have to look at potentially going somewhere else, closing it down, and then maybe going back to community house. But we're not sure. We're trying to stay positive, but yeah, it would be pretty, disheartening if we had happened.
Councillor Hastwell.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you both and your supporters for the submission and your presentation tonight. I think most of my questions are being covered already, but just you're mentioning the expansion to the 24/7 pantry. Is that part of what you're looking for to be funded through this budget bid?
No, that's already previously funded through the Food Relief Network. So there was some funding as a partnership with Castlemaine Community House, Safe Space and Council, and there's an allocation of, I think it was around $8,000 to Castlemaine Safe Space to purchase food for those in that Food Relief Network that need it. So it is separate to that, but still, if we haven't got that physical space, we can't have that 24/7 food pantry.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Councillors, anyone else have any questions? I have one, Jeremy, before you sneak away. Noting, obviously, all the great work you do and this funding request. So it's a one-off funding request to help you with operational, like rent and stuff, I'm assuming, to retain your premises and keep it all going. But it's one-off. So noting that you don't have any secure funding streams, if council were to fund this year, what would happen next year? Like, do you have a plan to build towards ongoing funding from somewhere else?
Yes, so we do. We do have, so Roses in the Ocean, it's not just them after 3 years letting us go totally. So we're still in connection with them as well as potential grants and funding, and there's conversations with state government, conversations with federal government. So there's a lot of those. And like I said, the Murray Primary Health Network, we keep engaging with them, and Vic Health and the Department of Health. So there's still ongoing discussions in there, but just to be able to keep it going so we can evidence and evaluate the next 12 months and more people, more volunteers coming on, more community members, more engagement would go a long way to increasing our potential for funding.
Great, thank you. Thank you for clarifying. Look, we're well aware of how difficult it can be to access grant funding for things like operations. We're well aware, but thank you for clarifying that. Awesome. Thanks both of you.
Thank you all.
All right, so we have a late apology. So next on my list is Lucinda Young from Yimby. The initiative is community composting. Hey, Michaela, no worries. Come on up. Thank you. So we had a late apology provided from Kelly Skinner at Newstead Live. We received it via email, so we can chat about that more after this. Go. She will not be coming at all. Yeah. Sorry, Michaela. Oh. You can speak to it? All right. So we've been advised by Kelly that no one was coming to speak to this one. But if you have the... All right. we'll let Michaela go and then we'll suss it out. Thank you. All right, Michaela.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. Yimby Compost was disappointed not to be in the draft budget. As we highlighted in the previous submission, Yimby composters currently compost over a tonne of food scraps each week, which is a saving to council of over $15,000 annually. We would be grateful if you would consider passing on at least this saving to us. As the International Review for Community Composting by Clytie Binder shows, access to consistent funding is key to the success or failure of initiatives like ours. So much of our valuable volunteer time, as you were just saying, is taken up finding funds and not doing the work. Mount Alexander Council has a chance to support and celebrate what is great in the Shire, and we think Yimby is one of those great things. There is so much support and enthusiasm in the community for us. We are currently training up 12 new composters to join our already established 28 composters. Today, Lucy is doing a presentation for Sustainability Victoria because they've asked us to speak as heroes of circular economy. Joel is door knocking in Tooten as we speak, meeting new contributors with our new composters there. So beyond the need for consistent funding, we ask that you think about how you go into this into the area of getting organics out of landfill, and we really want to be part of that. We really want to do that with you. There are advantages to going slow on FOGO. We can learn from other shires' mistakes, and there have been many. And we need good data to truly know the demand for this service in our area. And we, from all that we have learnt about the rollout of FOGO throughout Victoria, really believe that it's important to keep the food organics and the garden organics separate. Together, we can do something truly inspiring in this space. So please let us keep communicating with each other. And of course, if through this process you do find some money to allocate us, we really welcome it. And as I said at the start, if you would consider at least giving us the savings that Yimby's current work is giving the council, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Can I just confirm, Michaela, in the notes that we've got, firstly, thank you for coming in and speaking to your submission and initiative. Can you just confirm, we've got a figure of 20,000 here and you're speaking to 15,000?
Yeah, so I guess, you know, I guess, we just volunteer. Like, if you actually, and we talked about this at our initial presentation, if you actually cost it up, and we've done that costing with Michael, it's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I guess we're coming back to we're asking for anything, and anything that is ongoing is of extreme value, because then at least something is secure that we can work with. So of course we would love 25,000, but we've done the costings of our actual savings at our current capacity, and we think it's around $15,000. And that is just looking at tipping fees and transport fees for that amount of organic waste going into landfill.
Thanks for clarifying. Other councillors, does anyone else have any questions? Councillor Driscoll and then Councillor Maddock.
Sorry, Michaela. Thanks for your words. You're a little bit Castlemaine centric. Have you got any concept of moving further out within?
Yeah, we've
the
set up
region?
in Taradale. So Taradale's up and running. We're about to start a survey in Guildford. We're surveying the whole town. That's going to roll out at the end of this month. So that's a way of us getting data about these satellite towns, like what is the demand for a FOGO service in that town. So that's happening in Guildford. We've had interest from Malden just in the last, probably 3 months. So we've got 3 people that we're working with in Malden as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Michaela. I'm just would like to clarify, if you receive that money, $15,000, what would it be used for, and what would it enable?
It would be used to support primarily the 3 of us who coordinate the program. So we do that on volunteered hours. So it would give us a little bit of security so that we don't have to do other forms of work in order to support our ability to coordinate YIMBY, because it's huge now. Like I work, like my personal hours are like 4 full days a week, and I get paid for 5 hours of that. Yeah.
So is it, could I just maybe clarify that's around sustainability of delivering
Yeah.
the current and continue the
Yeah.
expansion?
The coordination of it that would go to. Yeah.
Any further questions from councillors? I think I might have one, Michaela. What am I thinking about? Look, I appreciate YIMBY. I'm a YIMBY user. I find it really great. And I like the way you approach it. I think you are doing great things. We have a legislative requirement to bring in these new waste streams by a certain date, I think 2027. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is.
And so while, I understand taking things slow and looking at other shires and cities' mistakes, we do also have to meet those state set requirements. I guess the way I think about YIMBY is the more the foe than the go.
Mhm.
So at this stage, you're only really dealing with food organics. Are
Yes,
you
and-
intending to expand out into go as well?
No, but we want the go to be treated
Separate from
separate.
the foe.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they can then be combined to make really good compost. But if you put them together at source in a bin at people's households, then it's really hard to make quality compost from that. And so by 2027, we have to have, yes, you're legislated to roll out a service, but it does not have to look like it can have a nuance to this area. So I guess we're not asking you to not do it, but it doesn't have to be like a rollout, one size fits all for the whole of the state. There is more flexibility in there than probably the literature says when we talk to people in the state government.
All right.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you for clarifying.
Thanks.
Just double checking, no more questions. Fantastic. Thanks, Michaela.
Thank you.
Now, the lady who thought she could, sorry, I don't know your name. Hey, Kate, do you feel like you would like to speak to the Newstead Live submission? Yeah, yep. So we've received an apology from her. Fantastic. Yeah, if you don't mind just, I guess, letting us know your connection so that we can orientate you, and then, yeah, you can have your 3 minutes.
I'm from Newstead Arts Hub, from the committee there, and Newstead Arts Hub and 3 other groups, including Newstead Live, of which Kelly is from, are looking to amalgamate in the not too distant future. So we talk all the time. Having said that, I'm not 100% prepared other than a text, but let's get going.
Would you like to circle back? Would that be
No,
better?
let's do it. It's
Okay.
all good. So Newstead Live is a folk festival that's been running in this part of the world for about 22 years, the last 12 of which have been completely independently run by volunteers based in Newstead. And Kelly Skinner is the festival manager. Each year, between 1,000 and 500 people descend on Newstead to celebrate over the long weekend in January. a real bevy of different acts in a very broad church called folk music. Folk in its original sense is really about storytelling from different people and different walks of life. And certainly that's been the case. The whole town embraces Newstead Live. I attended a debrief from this year's festival, and it is really evident 160 people from the town and visitors will participate as part of the event management team and volunteer to put the weekend on. You have the submission in front of you. It doesn't actually put a figure on it. I'll talk to that in just a second. Currently, the festival receives, on average, in the last 5 years, $2,000 for an event, which it can't access any more than $2,000 because of its current size. That only represents about 2% of its budget, which it needs to find for itself. This year, about 900 people turned up. The festival didn't have a marketing budget, and everything was recycled and repackaged from the year before. And that wonderful volunteer team has to manage everything on the back of an envelope or on someone's borrowed laptop. We billet people out. There's a real exchange of art, culture, stories, history, and diversities throughout the festival. And it takes about 6 months of the year to put it on. The festival is struggling because we're all ageing, but it's still fluid. What we're looking for is consideration from council to think about the sort of impact that that group of people and all of those volunteers are having year after year, including about $40,000 impact, direct and indirect, into the community. We have people camping, paying, we have all of the sports clubs involved, men's shed, art groups, etc., all involved and participating. So they're looking really for consideration for some practical funds to do with marketing. We know that there will be an uplift of around about $20,000 if we could actually just get some funds to advertise and market. And something like that might cost anywhere between $10,000 and $15,000. They'll be working with us in the future, hopefully in about a year's time when we form one organisation, but we have a festival this January.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kate. Do you mind staying up just for a sec in case there's any questions? And thank you very much for leaping into action and speaking to this one. It does really help. Councillors, any questions? Councillor Hastwell.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Kate. And yeah, echoing, my goodness, how wonderful that you were able to step up and good on you. Not easy. But yeah, I think you've given us a really good picture. Again, a similar kind of question to one of the previous questions in relation to a different submission.
Yes.
And that is around what impact, if any, would this one-off request make in terms of the sustainability of the festival going forward?
Well, it'd be really immediate and really direct. So we'll get an instant uplift in audience numbers, no doubt about it. Like, because honestly, we ran it with 900 with no marketing. We've got a grant out for event management software, and that will transform our lives, and it will transform the lives of our volunteers who really, really suffered and struggled with the influx of people. But every festival like that, as you can imagine, I don't know the numbers on the acts, but let's say there's 50 across the weekend. All of those submissions need to be processed, scheduled, curated, paid, directed, housed. It just goes on and on and on. So we're looking at getting some software. We'll take care of that. That will really transform the experience of our volunteers and our focus to be able to be thinking about different and better acts, if you like, over the years. We also understand we've got to rejuvenate the young and the younger artists coming into the festival. So it'll be an instant uplift. But marketing, does take time and money. If you have, our comparator would be the Fringe Festival, look and feel. We even had big mistakes in our little homemade, what do you call that, guide. We could really avoid that. So that it will make a big difference this time round, and it'll set a fresh foundation for following years.
Thank you.
I want to just also quickly say that we're part of a national network of folk festival aficionados, and they're not dying yet, and they keep turning up. And so we are being advertised and promoted year long throughout that network.
Thanks. And that just leads on to another question. So when you say we're not dying yet, are you referring in some way to the demographic of your audience?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we need to put some marketing effort in particular to attracting not just younger artists, which we have in the past, many, I've seen them and attended many, but to bring their audiences with them. So there's that kind of reach, and that requires a bit of savvy, and we don't have that. You know, we're managing on our social media as it is. But this, if we get the software we're talking about, people will have apps. They'll be able to, you know, see on their phones, and that's one way of really communicating to younger audiences.
Councillor Maddock, and then Councillor Driscoll, and then Councillor Maltby.
Thank you. Just clarifying some of the the money and the view of sustainability. So
Yes.
so the money enables marketing, which increases audiences. I'm assuming you're selling tickets for these. It becomes more efficient. You
Yes.
then have more money in the bank.
Yes.
I'm
Absolutely.
assuming to roll it out. So it's
Yeah.
a sort of a one-off
It is
investment to create an ongoing.
It is a one-off at this stage, because the other thing we haven't even spent any time on is recently we haven't had the bandwidth, everyone's talking about it, to get better sponsorship as well. We don't need much. This thing has run well on the smell of an oily rag for a long time, but we have to rejuvenate it, because we also need to bring a new generation of festival directorship. Yeah, does that make sense?
Hi, Kate. Kelly and the team do a wonderful job. I think you sold yourselves short with, I reckon your impact is much more than 33 grand, but
Why?
I don't know where that figure came from, so I just want to state that.
Just a very direct bean counter.
The software program, do you know the
Yeah.
cost of that at all off the top of your head or not?
Yeah, I think it's around about 6,700, but it does everything except serve you breakfast.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it does all the front end work, dealing with the artists and their applications, and then costings, budgeting, scheduling. I can't remember what else, but it also allocates volunteers to particular acts in the festival. It's pretty powerful.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Councillor Maltby.
Kate's already answered my question, was whether it was a one-off application.
No worries. Other councillors, any further questions? All right. Thank you very much, Kate. Edwina Reid, on behalf of Castlemaine Goldfields Football Club. The initiative is irrigation system upgrade/replacement.
Thanks, Rosie. Thanks for the opportunity to present today. And I'd like to begin by thanking the council for their support in the previous budget towards a feasibility study to find us additional playing space. As the returning councillors will know, we have very high rates of participation that are continuing to grow, and we've outgrown the ground at Tewton. I'm currently using an overflow ground at Wesley Hill, but looking for a more permanent solution. Football Victoria have advised us that we are Tewton is the most used soccer pitch in Victoria, as we are the largest club in the state to operate with only one senior pitch. Although, you know, we're a relatively small rural shire, we are one of the top 50 biggest soccer clubs in Victoria. That's something we're very proud of. Something else that we're proud of is that we have very strong rates of female participation, with over 35% female participation. But one of our biggest challenges at the moment is just our playing surface. While none of our facilities are very fancy, they're adequate. You know, we've got change rooms, we've got for our 600 members, we've got a club room that fits about 30 people, but we're not asking for bigger things of that. We just want to be able to play. And the irrigation system at the moment is inadequate. We made the submission based on the recommendation of council officers who've acknowledged that the irrigation system is inadequate. And so part of the issue is that as the grass cover, the irrigation doesn't reach the whole pitch. There are patches that compact over the summer, even though we're continually watering. The grass doesn't grow with the continued high level of usage. It's already 3 rounds into the season. We've got 132 matches scheduled at Newton this year. That's from under 10s to seniors. We also have 160 4 to 9-year-olds every Friday night. And already 3 rounds into the season, the ground is looking pretty worn. You know, there are patches without grass on them that if we do get any rain, it will turn to mud. And our concern without upgrading the irrigation system is that we will have to cancel matches and training sessions because the ground becomes unplayable. Thank you.
Thanks, Wayne. Questions from councillors? Councillor Hayden.
Thanks, Edwina. Just if you could just speak a little bit more about the practical, like, does it turn to a bog? Are they dried and compacted? Like, what's the practical outcome? Are players injured when they fall or slide on the unwatered ground? Like, what does it look like practically?
Practically, it's really about the grass cover. So without the grass cover, there are areas that have become depressed. I don't know if you see, it's not a very level pitch. It's very, all over the shop. I guess it is an injury risk. That's probably not the main thing. The main thing that we're concerned about is having to cancel matches because when it does rain, the water pools in those areas that don't have grass, and the grass facilitates the drainage because the root system, I'm not really an expert, but this is what I've been told, the root system aids the drainage, and so where the grass isn't growing, then the water doesn't drain and the water pools, and you can't, because soccer is played on the ground, you actually have to cancel matches. If there's standing water on the pitch, you can't play a game because the ball won't move.
Councillor Driscoll.
Thanks, Mayor. Edwina, do you have a rough cost of the irrigation system you're thinking at all?
I believe council officers have a quote. I believe it's around 100,000. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No? All right. Thank you for coming in,
Thanks.
Edwina. I'll just let you know, I've been in Bendigo today in Epsom. The Year 7 and 8 female soccer players got through to the final and are going to the next level, many of whom came through Goldfields. So good job. Okay, so we now have Jacqueline Brody-Hans back-to-back representing first Castlemaine Fringe Festival.
But I'm sure a lot of you are aware that this year's Fringe Festival was phenomenally successful, and it builds on an amazing trajectory of the last 3 festivals where the Fringe has been going from strength to strength. So Fringe has been going for 34 years. I've been the chair for the last 3 festivals, and I've been partnered by our amazing festival director, Azzy Jones. And Azzy's an apology today. She, like so many part-time event and cultural workers, has to maintain a day job. And she does amazing community development work elsewhere, so she's unable to join us. I've only been directly involved as the chair for the last 6 years, but my participation and involvement in Castlemaine Fringe dates back to 2007. And I've been a volunteer, I've been a participant, and I've been a host of a whole range of Fringe activities. And I've seen the most phenomenal growth in the organisation in the last 6 years. I'd love to take some credit for that, but I really do have to acknowledge the amazing role that our director, Azzy J, has played. And a lot of that has been because we've prioritised paying that role. And we do extraordinary things as volunteers in this community. This room is full of people doing extraordinary things as volunteers, but we all know the difference it makes when we validate those roles and we enable people to take some time away from their day-to-day jobs and actually focus on what has to be done to deliver incredible results for the community. And in 2023, we entered an MOU with Council, and you were generous enough to put $10,000 on the table that supported us over the last 2 years of our growth. And I'm really excited to report that your return on investment was tenfold, because we took that $10,000 and we turned it into $100,000 worth of grant success. And it's by providing that base operational support that we're able to build year in and year on to grow the festival and to reach and engage with more and more community members and artists. And as you'll see, the data that we've gathered from the last festival shows that we really, really succeeded. We had over 33,000 people participating, attending events. We had over 600 performers who were involved. We had 100 volunteers. And we contributed in excess of $250,000 to our local economy, both through ticket sales and also through expenditure of people attending the events. So we're really excited about the future of the festival. We're thrilled that the State Festival will be back on board next year. This was the very first time Fringe had ever run separately to the State Festival. It looks like it will be ongoing, that we have alternate years, and I think this is great for our broader community, and we're really looking forward to partnering with the State Festival and with Council going forward.
Thanks. Sorry. Thanks, Jacqueline. Councillors, any questions for Jacqueline? Councillor Driscoll.
Hi, Jacqueline. Is the budget bid for $30,000, and you have a broad use of those funds, please?
Yes, look, the request is for $20,000 over the next 2 years with $10,000 in kind. We recognise that Council does provide a lot of in-kind support through officer time and also use of venues. So we're very grateful for that. So we feel that if we could turn your last 10 into 100, then the least we could do is ask you to turn the last 10 into 20 as we approach the next 2 years.
Thank you.
Other councillors? Nope. All right. Thank you, Jacqueline.
Thank you.
Please remain and
Quickly swap my hats.
yeah, swap your hat. Take a moment. You'll now be speaking representing Business Mount Alexander.
And similarly, I've got some little goodies to leave in case you're interested. It's always nice to take something away. I'll just leave a copy of our annual report and also a map from one of the projects we've worked on, which I'll speak to. So just give me a moment. Talking about economic development is not as sexy as safe spaces and soccer and arts festivals. So, however, economic development, as we all know, is pretty critical to our community. So, just give me a moment. All right. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge that it's really exciting to see new faces sitting around Council's chambers. So thank you all for stepping up and for sharing your energy, your enthusiasm and your expertise. But as there are a number of new councillors, you may not be aware of Business Mount Alexander's long-standing partnership with Council. So please feel free to ask me any questions about this 11-year history. BMA was established by Council in 2014 to provide a direct and effective voice to and from the local business community. The relationship between the Local Business Association and local government has strengthened over these last 10 years, culminating in an MOU which was executed between BMA and Council in 2022. And dialogue between the parties is currently underway to create a new MOU, so it's timely to consider the financial support required for BMA to advocate, support and represent our local business community. BMA currently has 150 members, including nearly 80 members who are part of our Mount Alexander Taste program. And that's what this this map is. This initiative was funded by Business Victoria, and it allowed us to run a promotional campaign showcasing and celebrating local food and drink producers, retailers and venues. I have a selection of some beautiful photographs that were taken of our producers and venues, part of that campaign. And following on the success of last year's showcase event, the 2025 Mount Alexander Taste Showcase is in planning now and will be held in late July. We've got a Bastille Day planned. We'll be celebrating Christmas in July. There's a Shire-wide competition for the National Lamington Day, and we'll be shrugging off the winter chills with mulled wine, cheese fondue and blazing bonfires. So expressions of interest for participating businesses open next week. And if you come along to our social networking event, one of 4 that we run each year, next Tuesday you can hear more about what's planned. You'll also hear what's in store for the rejigged regional tourism boards. BMA have been working very closely with Daylesford Macedon Tourism and are excited to explore new partnerships with our neighbouring shires. We seek funding assistance to continue our work as we advocate, support, network and represent our local business community. Our committee of volunteers, there's that V word again, are also small business operators. The very many hours that we put into supporting BMA does nothing to help or further our own individual businesses. Let me tell you, I'm not there now running mine. I'm here advocating on behalf of our business community. So we support and strengthen the broader business community, stimulating economic opportunities for the greater good of our shire and helping address and progress the goals enshrined within Council's own economic development strategy. And we look forward to partnering with Council to achieve these goals.
Thanks, Jacqueline. All right. Questions for Jacqueline about Businessman Alexander. Councillor Hastwell and then Councillor Maddock.
Thanks, Mayor, and thank you, Jacqueline. Yeah, absolutely. Very impressive, beautiful work that's happening there. Just a very simple clarifying question in terms of the ask. So you're looking for 20K over 2 years. Is that 10K per year?
Yes, we also recognise that previously Council has contributed in kind, again, through the use of venues. So if that was also factored in.
So that in-kind would be considered as in addition to the 10K as a financial
I think you'll
contribution?
find, like everyone in the room, will take what we can get. If you've got 20,000 sitting down the back of the couch, thanks very much. But if recognising that that in-kind support is also valuable.
Yeah, thanks very much.
And I know you don't have it back down the back of the couch. I really appreciate it's a very tight economic times for everybody.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Jacqueline. Again, just confirmation, if you could speak to what would that money would be spent on and what that would enable for Businessman Alexander?
Sure. Well, we currently run 4 social networking events every year, quarterly essentially, and we have 60 to 100 people come along to those. They're overwhelmingly small and micro business representatives. Some bigger business come when they want to flog their wares or just make themselves known. So NBN is one group that come along quite regularly. So those opportunities are really valued by our members because people are pretty siloed when they're running small business, and they're also really good just for information sharing. So the funding will support us to be able to put on events such as those, but also training sessions, information, forums. We do retain an executive officer who works anywhere between 5 and 10 hours and participates at council's economic development initiatives, such as the recent Career Expo, the upcoming Small and Micro Business Day. If there is any meeting that requires representation from business, we're there. It also just pays for basic printing costs, internet, maintaining a website. So they are overall operational and supporting our members to come together.
Any further? Councillor Driscoll.
I just wanted to thank you, Jen, yourself, Jen, Michael, and the committee for doing a great job. I think you do a wonderful job. And those 4 nights, which I often attend, are really good networking for businesses because it, as you say, it does get isolated when you're doing your own thing. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Does anyone else have a question for Jacqueline? I might go then. Jacqueline, and from memory, and I think you mentioned as well, previously council has committed $10,000 over 2 years to BMA, so $5,000 a year. This request is for double that. Is that because you're intending to expand what you're offering?
Yeah, we've had really significant growth in the organisation. I think when we received the initial funding in 2022 from council, we had 50 members and we're now just shy of 150. We were really successful in receiving various grants from Business Victoria, but as our good friends at Castlemaine Safe Space indicated, that the funding is always project based. So you end up creating more work for yourself, and then you have the challenge of maintaining work. And when funding is no longer available, you then have to find alternate ways of supporting that.
Thanks.
And we purposely keep our membership low. When BMA was first created by council or proposed for creation, the rates were varying dependent on the size, and they went up to $500 a year. Now, there's very, very few businesses out there that are stumping up $500. You also have a greater pressure and expectation to deliver more if you are asking for that level of money. So we keep it really accessible at $100, and we are always looking for ways to, secure sponsorship and increase funding opportunities, and this is one of them.
Great, thank you for clarifying. Any last questions for Jacqueline? No, thanks very much.
Thank you. And I might just go back and run my business now, excuse me.
Next, we have Suzanne Hogan representing Wesley Hill Hall Committee of Management, and the initiative is the Wesley Hill Play Space.
Thank you very much for allowing Wesley Hill to come along and have another go at our budget submission. I think our initial budget submission was looking for $120,000 for a dedicated natural recreation play space for young people and families at the Wesley Hill precinct. We came back at your invitation in March for the deputation, and we spoke to you about the focus of Wesley Hill precinct being a real community space, a space since late 1850s, I think it was, that we have actually seen that space used for the community. When we received the budget advice, we reflected, we were deeply disappointed. We'd done a lot of work in the master plan space. We felt very confident. Our reflection was that perhaps our budget wasn't as tight as what it could have been. It wasn't just about, council having money or not having money. It was, we looked at what did we actually submit for our budget? And to be blunt, $120,000 in an environment such as we're hearing about, such as we know about, that's really, finite resources. I actually come today saying, could we have $22,500, not $120,000? And the basis upon which I say that is that we want to chunk it down. I think one of the things about Wesley Hill, we are very excitable we are incredibly ambitious, and sometimes we need to rein ourselves in, and I feel like this is one of those moments. That's okay. It's all about learning. So what does that get for you? What it gets is it gives us the opportunity to seek the design, consultation, and concept drawings. So the 120 was vaguely predicated on the work that was done with the Norwood Hill, that fantastic redevelopment of the playground up that end, which I think came in around 150. So that's where we were kind of, pitching in that 120. That 22,500 would give us the opportunity to get, really solid consultation happening with local residents about the recreation and play space, and perhaps get us into the design phase. We're going to turn our attention and our ambition and optimism to seeking grants from many and varied places that perhaps won't include council, but we would look forward to a partnership with council in terms of moving that parcel of land forward. And that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hayden.
Thanks, Mayor. And thanks for your deputation. Just a quick one. I thought in the master plan, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought you'd already completed community consultation in Wesley Hill. So the community consultation this time, how is that different to what you've already done?
What we'd be looking at, you're right, we did consult heavily with the master plan. We got a lot of feedback from community through our survey responses and actual talking to focus groups. And the resounding view was, yes, we need a play space here. Well, that's great, but if you have a look at play spaces and natural recreation reserves across the Shire, they're all very different. And so the consultation would be about what are the specifics that would go into the Wesley Hill site. I was living in Norwood Hill at the time that one was done. And, you see the families down there now that would never have been there previously. Community, participated in that process with council and they got a great result. So it's about, are we going to have room for a barbecue? Maybe not. Do we have, one of those raised walking platforms for kids? What does the vegetation look like? Do we have, trampolines? Or it's those kind of questions that we'd look to get the design, because it is quite a compact space that we're actually talking about there.
Councillor Cordy.
Yeah, look, thanks very much for your submission. One of the things I'd comment about Wesley Hill is in my time on council, we've spent about 3 million up there, and pretty significant. But what I would say is we recognise there's huge potential there, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot more to happen there. So, yeah, well, it's really difficult and our budget's really tight, but I'd be optimistic about Wesley Hill and what's going on there in the pipeline. So yeah, it's really tough to get money. We've got a really tough budget at the moment, but I'm optimistic about the future. So it's not really a question, it's just a comment. Thank you.
Maybe you could join our committee. We like optimistic people.
Councillor Maddock.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you. I'm guessing the 3 million is for the recreation facilities that serve the entire Shire, so maybe not fostering the Wesley Hill community gathering specifically. I wasn't seeking a debate. With the surveying, do you have a sense of the amount of use a play space there would receive? I know that might be putting you on the spot, but if you do have it, it'd be nice to know.
Well, we would expect quite heavy usage. At the market on a Saturday morning now, we've put in the hall, we put fake grass down and toys for kids to play with. And we're seeing more and more parents go in with the coffee. The kids are running less and less and squealing less and less in the hall, which is fabulous. You can only imagine what it would be like on a beautiful sunny day if you directed your children towards the play space, and that's somehow nice and safe for them, and you might go back over to the chai tent or go to the coffee or just hide in the corner, whatever you might do. So, you know, Saturdays would be pretty heavy usage. I would also imagine, you know, during the week, in particular mothers. So I think it was a 17% increase in families moving into the Wesley Hill area, was what was identified in the master plan. So that's a factor.
Over what time period?
That might have been between 2016, 2021, about 70%. Was noted in our master plan.
Okay.
So, you know, young mums trans not having to load into the car and, you know, just pushing around the corner, you know, would be pretty cool, I imagine. It's a lot of usage.
Yep.
And we're also seeing increased usage of the hall as well. You know, during the Fringe Festival, we saw a great uptake in use of the hall for fringe activities, which was, you know, really fabulous. But at the same time, there's been a ripple effect through to other hall usage as well, yogas and all sorts of business.
And then just finally, you mentioned seeking other grants to complete this work or similar works. Do you have a sense of how much more likely you would be to receive that funding if you had the design work done at this stage, as opposed to seeking funding for the whole project?
I suppose, yes, we would expect that that would help us along, because we're looking to, you know, take a really collaborative approach and a cooperative approach with a whole range of partners. It's not just about, you know, the committee, it's about the community, partnering with council, local businesses. You know, we've got a shed getting built at the moment, and we're partnering with a couple of local suppliers who are donating goods for us. You know, that's the kind of, you know, collaborative effort we want to be showing right across the board, not just in, you know, the grant space. Yeah.
Any further questions? No, thank you very much.
For your time.
So we've had one speaker withdraw at number 8. So then our next speaker will be Lee Mead, representing Tarrangower Cactus Control Group, Incorporated.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm representing the committee of the Tarrangower Cactus Control Group. Our group has one single objective, and that is to control infestations of wool cactus. This species of cactus was declared a noxious weed in Victoria way back in 1963 and has been classified as a weed of national significance since 2012, both recognising the serious threats it poses. Our volunteer group appreciates the ongoing financial support provided by Mount Alexander Shire over many years, which is approximately, you know, 2,000 to 3,000 per year, has been. This has been very well used by us to help host community field days on private properties, to demonstrate techniques and assist landowners to begin controlling their infestations, and also used to provide incentives to landowners, such as injecting and digging equipment, and a maintenance service for broken injectors and free disposal of plants. This support has greatly assisted our volunteers in increasing awareness, knowledge and participation of local property owners. The majority of permanent local owners now have the capacity to treat their wool cactus infestations, and they do so. We also appreciate the ongoing treatment of wool cactus along our roadsides, which is carried out by contractors organised by the Shire. All this support indirectly benefits the Shire, as it assists in decreasing the spread of this weed and the accumulated seed bank on our roadsides and other Shire managed properties. However, despite 20 years of relentless work and engaging with the majority of our community, infestations of wool cactus continue to increase in density and distribution throughout Mount Alexander Shire and beyond. This is due to the minority of landowners that do not control their infestations. And they don't do this because either they have a lack of knowledge by new property owners about noxious weed control legislation, or a lack of engagement with absentee landowners who don't live on their properties and who are non-compliant with weed control. and also because of a lack of awareness of will cactus specifically by these new and absentee landowners. Our volunteer group has reached the point where we're unable to improve will cactus because we cannot contact with these new and absentee property owners. Our group now needs support to inform new residents of their noxious weed control responsibilities and to inform new and absentee landowners about our noxious weed will cactus. Our group regularly prints information brochures and pays Australia Post to deliver these as unaddressed mail. But these only reach 50% of addresses that accept unaddressed mail, plus they don't reach the absentee property owners whose postal addresses are elsewhere. But we believe that if Mount Alexander can distribute this vital knowledge by distributing to absentee landowners and new residents, that this vital knowledge would be very effective.
Thanks, Lee. Councillors, do we have any questions? Councillor Hastwell.
Thanks, Lee, and thanks very much to other members of the group for attending.
Supporters. We joked about them standing behind me nodding.
Oh,
we thought you'd get the joke.
Well, you could, still do that if you wanted to. Okay, so just to clarify then, I think you've made very clear, what the issue is, what you've achieved, what the current issue is. I've got two questions. In terms of if this level of intervention doesn't occur, what are the implications of that in terms of environmental or biodiversity?
Well, indeed. So if the situation stays the same, where the absentees and new people aren't aware of their responsibilities and don't participate, the infestations will just grow and grow.
And how does that, for those of us who are not, hugely versed in this area?
Well, indeed. So it impacts the native biodiversity. These plants smother all our native species from growing, and it upsets the ecosystems, the food chains for our native animals. It also impedes agricultural production. So yeah, it affects both our natural biodiversity and primary industry. And it reduces the value of people's properties.
Sorry, thank you. Just to clarify the ask then, are you asking for in-kind support from council or financial or?
Well, indeed. So, we'd like to collaborate with council to be able to sort of set up a system where information is sent out to, all new residents. So indeed, in the past, welcome kits have existed, and they contained useful information for all new residents, but these haven't happened for at least 20 years. But ideally, that's the sort of, we produced these ward-specific weed information brochures a few years ago for that purpose, to be sent out to all new residents. I'll leave some. Just these are. But providing this information initially, when people move to the Shire, is far more effective than trying to educate people afterwards. Sorry, is that I don't know that I was answering your question.
I think partly you've talked about, I think, the collaboration and partnership.
Yes.
The question was all around: is there an ask for financial contribution, or is it an in-kind?
Be able to provide the information, but we are indeed asking for the Shire to set up some sort of system to actually distribute information. So I have no idea how much that would cost.
No, that's good. Thank you very much.
Councillor Maltby and then Councillor
These could
Cordy.
actually go out with a rate notice.
They could indeed, and we have asked that previously. But in fact, it would be better if it was an ongoing thing. If it went out to all new residents, if there was something like the old, yeah. But Yep.
Thanks for your submission. I'd like to acknowledge the work of the group. You've made fantastic inroads, but I see it is really a Shire-wide problem. Like I've recently seen wheel cactus as far away from Malden as the freeway, Calder Freeway. So it's a broader problem, and I encourage you to keep going with the work, because you can see where you've been,
Yeah.
but it's a huge problem. Thank you.
Indeed, and as we pointed out to our visitors this morning, this species of cactus particularly likes granitic soils, which is why it is so bad around our granite hills. But if it gets to Harcourt, it will do the same thing, and if it gets to Ravenswood, it will do the same thing. So it's really important to actually prevent it from spreading further, and it is spreading. Regardless of all this work we've done, it is still spreading. So the information needs to be out there, not to ignore it.
Councillor Maddock.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Lee. And a comment, not a question. It was amazing to see the properties that had been maintained compared to the ones that hadn't. And I just really wanted to underline that the containment of this and the importance of keeping it out of other areas. So thank you for all your work.
And indeed, so it's because of the few property owners that don't control it that it will never go away. It really and control, the more landowners and agencies that control it, the less it will impact our environment.
Any further questions for Lee? No. I'm going to add my comment in because I recently had a nightmare about wheel cactus after spending an amount of time out that way and being pretty shocked, honestly, about how much wheel cactus there was. I ended up having a nightmare in which the wheel cactus, it was a bit Day of the Triffids-esque, I think. The wheel cactus kind of turned on us. It was terrifying, but look, it's bad. It's bad, and
it is worse. It is worse than when we started 20 years ago.
So I think,
and we've done so much work and killed so many cactus.
Yeah, but they just keep coming. Anyway, thank you for coming in and sharing. Thank you for all the good work you do. We appreciate your time and energy. Next, I'm not sure who's here. Oh, Peter Strang. Is it just you? Oh, all right. Peter Strang, representing Mount Alexander Cycling Inc. and Carmick Castlemaine.
Mayor and councillors, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. The Shire's community vision aspires to be a connected, inclusive and healthy community. Quality active transport infrastructure provides a healthy option for people to get to the shops, work, school and services, and to socialise. Now, also note that road safety is important for all road users, especially vulnerable road users such as pedestrians, cyclists and mobility aid users, so that the two concepts go together, active transport and road safety. Active transport can also mean fewer cars on the road, less demand for car parking, reducing car dependence, which can allow some households to manage with fewer cars, and it can also encourage cycle tourism. We're pleased about the following wins for active transport in the Shire, for both for active transport and road safety, and some of them with external funding, which the Shire's obtained. So there's large active transport projects such as the Mackenzie Hill Path, the Frederick Street Mechanics Lane project, CMRT, which we still hope to see happen, and other studies and small projects such as the CBD Road Safety Strategy, and there's a disability access study, I think, that's been funded. And there's also ongoing planning work from the 2023 Active Transport Strategy. Unfortunately, we have observed that the planning and delivery of projects with significant active transport content are fragmented across different areas within council, and sometimes with differing levels of expertise and I hate to say, but enthusiasm. I can talk to you privately about that. To better align council strategies, develop a list of shovel-ready projects for future rounds of Commonwealth and state funding or grants, to plan and design projects and ensure that council gets the full potential from active transport investments. We'd like to see council employ a qualified transport planner / urban planner and or urban designer who specialises in active transport and road safety. And they would work with council officers across a range of departments and act as a hero, if you like, but also to see a budget to engage consultants to support the active transport road safety officer, to commission data collection and research to use in council grant applications and other advocacy work. Given the likely levels of investment in active transport, we think this is an urgent matter, but it could be done initially on a part-time basis. So we're not necessarily asking for a full-time person. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Councillors, do we have any questions? Councillor Hayden.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Mayor. Say whether it's part-time or full-time, I understand the suggestion would be that staff member works out of town hall as a council officer. And how would you see the best fit of that officer within existing council structures? Would it be someone who sits within infrastructure and planning, or someone who's working across departments, someone who's working with outside agencies?
Well, there is something I didn't get to, and that's the suggestion that that person works in the CEO's office and works to the CEO, but across departments. So that I think putting them in one department won't solve the particular problem that it won't provide the enhancement that we think is possible.
And sorry to put you on the spot, Peter, but do you have any kind of a sense of like, have you got any idea of how you'd quantify what kinds of value or savings, or how such a position could, I can understand qualitatively how this could be of benefit, but anything you can, like, so making our projects more efficient, more shovel-ready, perhaps having a better shake at grant funding. Is that something that Carmet or Mac have thought about? Like, if there's a sort of a sense of the kind of the cost-benefit analysis to us of having such an officer?
We haven't done the sums, but this sort of person works in other shires or other councils when they have an active transport officer. And so I think, well, with a bit more research, we could find out how they...
Sorry, rural shires or urban cities?
Well, not as much. I mean, it would be a bold move, if you like, but there's an awful lot of interest in active transport in the Shire. And there are a lot of people who come here to ride their bikes, to get around by bike, by walking. There's lots of great walking paths. So it's hard. I can't give you a figure, but I think it would pay for itself in terms of the benefit from projects and also obtaining more grants.
Thanks, Peter. And just to say thanks for all the work you've done and your advocacy around this. It is valued and impressive.
Okay, thank you. And by the way, Jenny Merkus will speak to you next.
Peter, could I just ask one last question?
We're not done yet. No, sorry.
Sorry, is it just about getting a suite of shovel-ready projects, or I'm curious how you see the benefit in sort of other areas, more day to day?
Look, I think it's also, this person would be a benefit in delivery. I mean, knowing what standards there are and knowing how things are done in other places can really help, rather than giving it to one particular department and say, "Will you deliver it?" If they don't have any real background, if they're not doing it all the time, it can be very difficult. So this person can educate others within council, work with others, provide advice. Yeah, so it's not just getting projects shovel ready, if you like, but it's also about delivery. I mean, I guess we decided not to ask for a sum of money for projects because we think there are a few projects in the pipeline and that they could be delivered perhaps better than if that with that person. Okay, all right, I'll scarper.
Were there any last questions for Peter? No, you're all good. Please be seated. But he's just told us that, I'm not sure of your name. This lady will be speaking on behalf of, hi Jenny. Jenny Merkus, there we go.
Of the Tarangara Tomorrow local group, auspiced by the Malden Neighbourhood Centre. And we developed the Tarangara Tomorrow Community Plan 2021. This followed from a previous plan which was led by council as part of a state government funded project. I was a member of that steering committee for that project. So there's a bit of a history in Malden with community planning. Our plan, 2021, was community funded and resourced and resulted from widespread community consultation. Significant aspects of the plan and the previous one have been implemented, including the Malden Streetscape project. Council should be complimented in working with Malden to complete this milestone project. It was on several plans, actually over 20 years. We wanted this to happen, and it happened last year, I think, and the year before. Our submission is about strongly urging council to commit to local area planning throughout the Shire as part of and informing its suite of plans, its council plan, its health and wellbeing plan, and local area planning would fit into that framework. And I understand very well that participation, community, all of those things connect communities and actually contribute to well-being. That's just part and parcel of what should happen in communities. And a plan actually informs council about what the community needs. What we are asking is entirely consistent with what you want to achieve in your goals in your community plan, your health and wellbeing plan, and your council plan. So what we're asking for is appropriate funding to enable participation processes such as surveys, community consultation sessions, etc., and also some skill-based assistance to ensure a consistent approach across the different areas of this municipality. Our plan, we believe, has been incredibly valuable in connecting our community and in determining priorities. And I know that councils have referred to our plan in the past. So that's what we're asking.
Fantastic, thank you. Councillors, any questions? Councillor Hastwell.
Thanks, Jenny, and thanks to everybody from the Tarangara Tomorrow group. Couple of questions. In terms of local area planning or how you envisage this working or informing council's broader planning processes, if you could talk a little bit about, or just, I guess, explain how a local area plan doesn't necessarily supersede broad shire planning, or, you know, I wonder whether sometimes there can be conflicts between who sets the priorities. Do local communities set the priorities for council, or how does that work?
I think that local priorities should inform council in their planning. And my experience, I was the former director at Moreland Council of Social Development, so I led a lot of community planning, health and wellbeing planning, and local area planning. And I think local area plans inform council plans and health and wellbeing plans. They don't supersede. I think council are elected and they set the priorities across the Shire, but they're informed by the local area consultation and participation set out in a community plan.
I'm also interested about how community plans, such as what you're talking about there, do you think they're more significant, for example, for townships that are not at the centre, if you like? I don't want to call it a satellite town, because otherwise that looks like, you know, we've got centre and satellites. But I guess you know what I'm talking about. The smaller communities, Newstead, Malden, etc., Taradale, Elphinstone. Is it different in those communities?
Well, there is a view that this council is quite Castlemaine-centric. And I think a way of counteracting that view is having community plans, and as we have. And I think our community plan was noted, and we were very lucky that Darren Boussard actually pushed our plan, and we actually got a lot of funding for our streetscape project, for instance. And so, you know, I think that relationship's really important. Yeah. Also for health and well-being. I mean, if you want to achieve, you know, a safer and more caring community, one way of doing that is through participation. And I think local plans should refer to the health and well-being plan, for instance. One should read the other, and council plans.
Last one, and you know there may be other councillors who are about to ask this question, and I've asked a couple of other people, but just to clarify what the ask is. In terms of dollars, what do you imagine, or are you thinking in kind or dollars? What does that look like?
Ideally, you'd want some dollars, and how long's a piece of string? I was just trying to calculate that. In Malden, we had a lot of expertise in the community. And I was able to inveigle a friend of mine to do the consultation at a very discounted price. So just a consultation for a day with an expert in community consultation and planning costs about $2,000. So that, and then there's printing and more, you know, relating to the community. That's all been done by volunteers in our community. And so I would say that for each local area, it probably costs $10,000, but I'm not expecting that would happen immediately. The other thing I thought is the way you could undertake community planning is to do it over 4 years, 2 plans each year, you know, rather than all at once to help you with your council budget. Yeah, that would be how I would think it could be achieved. Yeah.
Other councillors, any questions? I've got one. So I think localised planning is really, really great and really important. Where do you see, so in terms of Tarrangower tomorrow, does it take in not only Malden, but the smaller towns out there? So it's
Surrounding area. It
so
takes in,
Barringup doesn't have its own,
yes, no, it
or
doesn't.
Nuggetty doesn't have its own.
No, it takes in the whole area.
Yeah. So if with your suggestion of say doing 2 plans a year over 4 years, that's 8 areas. How do we pick what is its own unique area and what is part of? I guess, you know, it's the same problem we have, I guess, in the centre where if we're not careful, Campbell's Creek feels robbed of its identity and is just part of Castlemaine, or Wesley Hill feels robbed of its identity, or so, you know, proximity can be a good and a bad thing. So where do you distinguish the localness or the locality?
I think people themselves distinguish their natural communities. I think Malden and surrounds see Malden as the centre of their village and their area. Then there's Newstead, very active community, and Chewton is a very active community with their own characteristics. I know I was involved in the first community planning iteration, you know, some 10 years ago, and it was clear that each area had an identity. So you'd have to make sure that you properly identified where and how.
Great. Yeah, by asking, I presume, by asking
Yes.
people what they think.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. No last questions? No? All good. Thank you. All right. Next to speak, please, Michelle Burrell, representing other residents of Main Road, Campbell's Creek. The initiative is stormwater analysis.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to address Council. I'm speaking today on behalf of residents of Main Road, Campbell's Creek, whose homes were flooded in 2022. Many were also flooded in 2011, and a number of those residents are here today. I'll take it as a given that you've read our proposal for a stormwater analysis. Now, doesn't that sound exciting? But it actually really matters. Fixing the stormwater that threatens our homes, it's not a nice to have. It's an essential. As you know, in October 2022, at least 10 homes in the vicinity of the Campbell's Creek Post Office were flooded by stormwater when the main road flooded. Everybody knows that the current stormwater capacity in this part of Campbell's Creek is hopelessly inadequate to deal with heavy rain, let alone a significant weather event. Just to put it into context, there are a grand total of 4 stormwater outlets to cope with all the water coming from 4 different directions down 2 steep hills and 2 other sort of hills. So we cop it all in this little part of Campbell's Creek. And those pipes are also 12 inches in diameter. So I think you'll get the gist of what the problem is. We've got a large open stormwater culvert that also overflows in a major weather event. So the road outside our homes becomes a lake, basically. It floods and then our homes flood. And this comes at a huge cost to all of us. My repairs in the 2022 flood were over $100,000. I was out for 9 months. My neighbour here today, $200,000, out for nearly 2 years. And that's before you even start to think about the emotional cost of that, of losing all your possessions and being outside of your home for such a long time. It also doesn't take into account the re-traumatising effect of every time it rains. You get frightened, and that comes in really sharp relief. Less than 2 months ago, 15 minutes worth of heavy rain, stormwater overflows, road floods, it's lapping at my front step. So I can please appreciate that we're not making this stuff up. It really is a serious problem. But also, it's not just our homes, it's also community infrastructure, the primary school there, the bowling club there. In 2022, Bowling Club Road, the road floods at Bowling Club. $160,000 worth of damage. They don't have flood insurance, they can't get insured. $120,000 later, they had to pay that, $40,000 from a state government grant. And I think we can say if it floods again, there won't be a bowling club. And that community infrastructure actually really matters. I want to also just appeal to your fiscal responsibility as councillors. We cannot wait for the Campbells Creek levy. Please bring it on. You're going to make a big investment there, and we are really grateful for that, and we really can't wait for it to happen. But the reality is you will build that levy that has been designed without taking into account stormwater flows. So if the rain comes and the road floods again, our houses will still flood. So to me, that makes for, almost $1 million on a levy that could potentially be wasted investment. We know, and we really appreciate the work that council's been doing with us. We know that council officers have been trying to get state and federal funding for the stormwater analysis, because the stormwater analysis is the first step to work out how to fix the problem. Those funding applications have not been successful to date. And so as a strategy, that's not actually working for us. The council shouldn't sit and wait and hope that external funding might miraculously arrive. That strategy is not a way to manage the risk that we face. It's our homes that will go under while you delay doing what needs to be done. We know that the council is under financial pressure. We know you have many priorities, many of which you've heard about this afternoon. Thank you to everybody else that's been here today for the words they've spoken. We know you have to try and balance that, but surely the safety and well-being of residents comes first. Investing in the stormwater analysis is the first step to fixing the problem. Please don't leave us like sitting ducks just waiting for that road to flood again. Please fund this essential project. It is in your interests, it's in our interests, and it's in the community's interests to do that. We very much appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today and to kind of put to you in person the reality of what we're facing. We really encourage you to think hard about your budget decisions, but think about people, think about community, and think about your own fiscal responsibilities in the decisions that you make. And I'm happy to take any questions that you might have. Thank you. And I think I made it in time.
I think the CEO forgot to set the timer.
Oh, perfect. He was so mesmerised by the strength of the argument that he forgot to set the timer.
But I think you were pretty bang on regardless. Yeah, thank you for coming and sharing. Look, we do, I guess I'm just going to speak quickly. We do appreciate what you have experienced and what you continue to experience especially in terms, I think, of that re-traumatizing every time it rains. But thank you for coming and sharing that, quite powerfully with us, because it does matter to us to hear that from you. And thank you to everyone else up the back who came along to support as well.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Councillors, do we have any questions?
I can't believe there isn't a question.
There will be a question. I'm trying to get my thoughts in order. And I think Councillor Maddock might have one first.
Just to say, I've got lots of questions, but I'm going to hold them and direct them to officers around modelling and, to understand technically what's happening here, unless you have that knowledge.
Well, I'm not a planner. And
So I'm not.
Michael
I'm not asking a
business,
question, but I have many, and I'll be asking them.
And this is really about working out what's the best way to fix the problem without having any other unintended consequences, from doing that, because water's weird. So this is all about actually doing it and doing it properly. But our point is do it now.
Councillor Cordy?
Yeah, so we might take it offline, but I'd actually like to come and have a look at your
absolutely.
situation. So that'd be much
Anyone
appreciated.
always welcome to Campbell's Creek.
I'm sensing, does this gentleman have something to add?
I'm Tom Danby. I'm also one of the neighbours down there. One of the points I wanted to make is that it's quite different from the creek flooding to the road flooding. When the road floods, it's because the drainage can't take it away quickly enough. And I live just on that corner there, so I get to see it. So the recent rainfall, the road was done. I also should point out that it's the Midland Highway, and once it's flooded, that's cutting. There's no other way around it. So I'm a little bit concerned that we could end up with emergency services being unable to service the lower part of the Shire, mainly because of road flooding, not creek flooding. So to me, it's a pretty severe issue. Not just the households, but the fact that the whole community becomes broken up by any flooding in that area.
Yeah, thank you. I guess to really bookend this, look, it is a massive problem. We know that, and we know, I guess councillors are kept very well in the loop around, particularly around the levies, but around flooding more generally, because it is a massive problem in our shire, though not as big as some of our neighbouring shires. Even though, we don't flood to the extent of, say, Loddon, it still obviously matters, because each house that is flooding, each community facility, it's also affecting people. But I guess we are really kept up to date, and we know that the proposed levies are not going to, they're not going to fix all the problems. There are ongoing problems, and we know that it's just going to keep raining more and more, and all of that. So thank you for coming along and giving us that real face-to-face experience. But I guess please also rest assured that I'm making a lot of weird noises, that we are kept really well in the loop, and that it is quite a high priority for us to figure this out.
Thank you for that. And we have a really great relationship with the council officers. So shout out to them too
Thank
for the
you.
work that they're doing. And if you want to come for a little tour, Councillor Cordy, I'll find a way to get in contact with you. And then any other councillors that want to come
It
and
might
have a
be
look for
worth
yourselves, more than welcome.
It might be worth extending that to all councillors, just because, look, it is something we've heard about for a long time. It would be great to there is something different about seeing it with our eyes. I also know that we're in the process of arranging another community kind of meeting, and some councillors who can make it will be attending that as well. So there'll be more chances, I guess, to hear from affected residents face to face, which, really is very powerful.
Thank you.
So
Well, I might
thank you.
just try and coordinate that through. Oh,
There you go. Coordinate it through the Deputy Mayor.
we'll all see you soon.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone who is sitting so patiently and waiting for their turn. We are getting there in our own time, really. Next is Michelle Burrell. Oh, no, sorry. I just haven't crossed that off. Kate Tucker for Newstead Arts Precinct. Thank you. It's nice to see you again, Kate. Thank you for waiting.
No problems. Thank you very much for hearing us again today. I represent the Newstead Arts Precinct. My name's Kate Tucker. I'm the president of the Newstead Arts Hub currently. This Arts Precinct project, that's a mouthful, is about future-proofing arts and culture offerings for the benefit of practitioners, residents and businesses across the Shire and the region, not just Newstead. It's about enhancing the diversity of our offerings, making sure that they are transformational and impactful and meaningful, and better reflect the full diversity of our communities and the interests of visitors further afield and entice them to stay longer. The project involves forming a single governance structure from 4 main groups. The Arts Hub, Newstead Live, you just heard about, Newstead Young Writers Festival and the Red Shed. 3 of those groups have a track record of an average of 10 years of successful functioning without any ongoing funding, if you like, on the back of the effort of volunteers based in the community. We collectively touch right now about 4,500 to 5,000 people a year. That's visitors, artists, creatives and users, the majority of whom are local residents of the Shire and surrounds. Therefore, we play an important part in increasing local artists' income, ability to make a living from their practice. Their profile is increased and their ability to connect with audiences is strengthened. We also engage with hundreds of volunteers you've heard about already, enriching their lives, building their skills and their confidence, and helping them make connections and friendships across the community and with our visitors. Through our programs and events, we also bring international and national artists to our part of the world. Who knew it's only Newstead? Our services and programs are well patronised and really well respected. We always get good responses and feedback, and we have many more ways that we want to contribute. However, Similar to many stories this evening, our current level of activity has actually outgrown our capacity to support this through volunteering alone. We, like other arts and culture groups, find ourselves in an environment of ageing volunteerism, overwhelmed families with just life, and reducing government funding for the arts generally. From our research, and we've done quite a bit of it, speaking to experts in the sector across the state, and also we've spoken to over 20 arts and cultural groups in our catchment, if you like, the region and the Shire. We know that partnering and collaboration are the best strategies to survive in this environment. Hence the project's intention of bringing together these core groups, combining our resources, achieving economies of scale through sharing those resources, increasing the coherence of our brand and offering, it's very important, optimising those fantastic physical assets we currently have in the train and railway buildings and the land surrounding it. It makes compelling sense. For this reason, we have applied for and are in the final stage of assessment for the big project grant with Malden District Community Bank. It's a very competitive process. We will not know the outcome until early June. We may get some and we may get none. But we've been working on this project by ourselves without that grant for 2 years, and we took advantage of articulating what we need to do to thrive into the future. Our higher order goals for the precinct are to create a community-led regional arts and cultural destination grounded with a sense of place where we live, develop financial self-sufficiency through diversified funding streams. This is absolutely key. We're not expecting ongoing, revolving rounds of external funding. We want to become a network and a hub for the Shire's arts and culture group. Our research and communications with them have shown us there's plenty of opportunities to strengthen each other, and there's a vacuum in that regard right now. We want to build on our current contribution to social wellbeing through improved engagement of our volunteers, but also specifically offering increased arts programs around community health issues, such as we've been hearing about today. We think we have the know-how, but we can't do this alone. Sorry,
I can't get my mic to work for a sec. I'm going to need to ask you to wrap up. I'm sorry, your
That's
3
okay.
minutes are almost.
So you've seen our the funding. Yep, fantastic. And I just want to say, just finally, something special has been happening for very, very many years in Newstead around arts and culture. We punch above our weight, but it's not just for us. We're looking to share it, and we're looking to make sure that it's available for future generations. I've wrapped up. Thank you.
Thanks, Kate. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Hastwell.
Thanks again, Kate, and congratulations to the success and the growing profile of what's happening in Newstead in terms of arts, and also the way that you're working together and collaborating with other groups. I think, what you're doing is fantastic, and I think, I'm really impressed also with the approach that this is an ask for a one-off rather than a, repeated approach. I just have one basic question, and forgive me if it's in the submission and I haven't picked it up. But it seems to me that while you were actually waiting to find out about your big project submission to Malden and District Community Bank, I'm just wondering whether this ask at the moment would be superseded if you're successful in that, or it seems to me you're at a crossroads. If you're successful, and it's a very substantial amount of money, isn't it, that the big project can offer? Yes. What would then be the need or not?
It's a really good question. It really depends on what they offer, if they do offer us anything. So it's just completely unknown. So we are not waiting, we are meeting fortnightly to progress this. And I guess when you say supersede, that will have to be something that we'd need to kind of talk about. But the idea, or from the bank's point of view, they ask us, is there any co-funders for the project? And at this stage, that would be you. So we would reduce our ask of them, if you like, commensurately with it just really depends what they offer. I can't be clearer than that, I don't think.
My understanding of, and maybe I'm not totally up to speed with this, but my understanding is that the big project potentially attracts, how much is it about? It's
It's $1 million in total,
Yeah.
but it's likely that it won't. I mean, we know that they have seen some very good proposals.
Mm-hmm.
So we are not expecting to see our ask be realised, even if we are included. But we would be transparent about that. We are of the community, and there are many applicants today that are really, really worthy. So if we are successful to the extent that we don't need this, what we're actually saying though is we just need this we need investment up front in the project with the expertise to get us set up. And then the project will help fund roles that will allow us to build those and become more entrepreneurial and build those funding streams. So is that okay?
Yeah, thanks very much.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Kate. Do you think if you had if we were on board as a co-funder, would that increase the chance of getting the other funding?
I think it would really help. Yeah, as I said, it's really competitive, and I think that the bank's going to find it hard to award it to one group. I think they're going to want to spread it. I would if I was them. So yeah, I think it will really help.
Any more questions? Councillor Driscoll.
Thanks, Kate. Love your work. I know you work hard behind the scenes, and I really appreciate it. Just got a couple of questions, if it's okay. How's this project, well, how do you envisage this project to help aid arts and cultural groups within our shire?
So when we did our conversations, we realised that most of us are hand to mouth. Most of us are focused. We don't have much time to raise our eyes above the project immediately in front of us. So there's a real opportunity to work in a more joined up way. Ultimately, there's a huge interest in forming a network of arts and cultural groups. They're all the groups we spoke to are supportive of this. We don't see each other as eating each other's turf, or I can't think of the right expression. We actually see it as an opportunity to strengthen. But I guess the other part too is that we are satellites and nobody's coming. We've got to make this work for ourselves in the first instance. But we have a lot of knowledge to share. We have a journey that we've been on already for 10 years. And so we've already in our conversations found little opportunities for collaborations. Even with the community houses, we can share education program rollouts with them and take advantage of some of their increased funding than what we have, but also provide it in an outreach way. So there are lots and lots of little opportunities we're looking forward to being able to realise.
Cutting your lunch might be one of the expressions you were thinking of.
Sorry.
And just another question I've got is, how's the project going to improve income generation and employment locally?
Okay, so the big project, not this piece that we're asking for, is going to employ, maybe up to 3 people for a period of time directly, and potentially a print technician. If we meet certain gates and makes, in terms of our own revenue generation. But if we just look at their ability to come together as a group, we've got a increased volunteer base and skill base from which to build our marketing and brand. And we also have the ability through our print workshop and building a retail facility for our artists. This money will allow us to open say for example, the Hub's exhibition space during the week, which is currently not open. These are increased ways that we can generate funding for our artists. And printing just is a way of a passive way for artists to make money through creating collateral and, wallpaper, fabrics, posters, all kinds of things. So there's a real latent possibility here, which makes this quite compelling. We just have to get over the hump and get some people on board.
Thank you.
Any last questions? Thank you very much. All right. Next to speak is Zoe on behalf of Cathcoff and Naldoran.
Hi, everyone. I hope you're surviving this marathon session. Thank you for opening up the invitation for us to share in spoken words, not just written ones, about what's going on. So yeah, my name's Zoe. I work with Naldoran Education Aboriginal Corporation here in Castlemaine. I work in the capacity as an ally, as Kath's executive assistant and general admin support. And yeah, I wanted to pass on apologies from the directors and Uncle Rick and Kath. We only got notification yesterday afternoon about this session and none of them were able to come. So I'm just going to keep it very brief, like as of hopefully less than 3 minutes. Just to, first of all, thank the councillors for, I saw there has been an increase in funding. And there's a couple of questions Naldoran had. There was 12 grand allocated and with the great relationship that Naldoran and Council have had ongoingly over the years, there was $6,000 allocated for a meeting place teacher, which hasn't increased over the years. And this year now, there's 12,000, and we're not sure if it's in addition to the 6,000, and also if that's ongoing 12,000 or just for this year's budget as per the MOU that we're negotiating. So there's a few questions around that that we had, and also if there was a few different things asked for within the budget request, and just some clarity as to if there are particular items that money is for, or if that's in the discretion of Naldoran and in dialogue with the community development team and the MOU. But we just wanted to flag that, yeah, despite being really grateful, also wanted to emphasise the importance, amazing asset that Naldoran is for the community, both in terms of the work they do supporting First Nations youth and creating amazing sort of succession plans into the future in terms of really from primary school age through to high school, through to meaningful employment, really doing really unique and amazing work in partnership with the broader non-Indigenous community. And also just to emphasise, you know, Naldoran's about education, but sometimes I think there can be a misunderstanding, thinking that's just for school education, but actually emphasise the broader education work that Naldoran does and the huge impact and also untapped potential that lies there when Naldoran's well-resourced in terms of their operations, marketing, strategic planning, and things like that. Yeah, a lot of the work they do is volunteer run, despite having different streams of funding. So there's sort of there's two different parts of the budget increase request there that are both about the meeting place and about broader operations. That great to see further funding aligned with that request, if there was money available.
Great, thank you, Zoe. In terms of the questions that you have, is it okay if we take those on notice and our team will follow up with you to really get to those questions, because I just can't think well enough right now.
Yeah, fantastic. Yep.
Does anyone else have any questions for Zoe about this? Thank you, Councillor Walker.
Thank you, and hi Zoe. And yeah, I had some questions and you asked the same question, so we're going to have to wait for the director's report before we can answer.
Yeah, okay.
But help me out. You've said 6,000 for a second teacher for the meeting place. You've mentioned 30 students.
Yeah.
The question would be, from the time you started meeting place, how much have those student numbers grown, and do you envisage those numbers going further if there was a second teacher?
Yeah, Naldoran, the increase, the more the broader community understands the important work Naldoran is doing, the more there are schools reaching out to Naldoran, also from other shires, also with Bendigo and Maryborough, as well as within the shire, both in terms of Aboriginal students there, as well as incorporating Indigenous pedagogy into their curriculum. Because populations fluctuate, it's hard to say there's students that have been involved in the meeting place that no longer live in the shire, But in terms of the impact, what we do know is that when kids go into high school, that's where a lot of the real challenges occur. And there's high school programs for the First Nations youth that Nowdaran run, Cooley Business and Warrarak. And we know that retainment rates are much higher for those students that have done the meeting place and already have a basis of that sense of deep connection and relationship and the building of trust. And it's that continuity that's really one of the key successes of Nowdaran's funding. And continuous support is something that's also really challenging to ensure that's not just done voluntarily, because there's a lot of love and care in that. But the impacts in terms of the health benefits, all of the closing the gap targets, if kids in meeting place age and primary school age have support like Nowdaran and can begin to get pride in their culture, learn about their Aboriginal culture, connect on country locally, be supported as full people in their community, and then have that also integrated into the schools where they feel proud of who they are. And yeah, there's a huge impact in terms of that creating First Nations youth leaders. So we see that as well in terms of who's now being employed and also staying in the area, because there's hope and there's pathways through to employment. That's really that channel from primary school through to, employment opportunities around land care, early childhood education, all sorts of culturally appropriate opportunities.
Sorry, thank you. And the second question relates to the request for Nowdarong operations. And given your questions, I'm not sure if you've got the answer. I was curious whether you see this as part of or in addition to the MOU that's being negotiated.
I guess it depends on what's negotiated. It's still in the process of being finalised. And because there hasn't previously been funding for operations, I mean, it'd be amazing if there was ongoing funding for operations. But even if it is a one-off or a two-year thing or a one-off thing, there's a lot of systems that we could put in place around volunteer coordination, around marketing and communication, also to share stories and learning with the broader community and really build that narrative of that all-together story that Nowdaran is all about. And Jarrah, the word for Jarrah word, Nowdaran, it translates to all together. And I think there's a lot of potential also to kind of create, and with a business plan, so there can be further funding sought and kind of continuous sustainable streams of funding through philanthropy and other modes. So yeah, even if there is a one-off offering, it would have a big impact, but we would also very happily accept multi-year funding.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Zoe. A couple of questions. First one, have you noticed, or has Nowdaran noticed, an increase in the need and value for the services they run since the referendum result, particularly in response to increase in racism?
Yeah, definitely. There's been a huge increase in racism that the students have been reporting, and also teachers reporting and needing more support to be able to address this. So Nowdaran has been trying to support the teachers as well as the students, and the sort of roll-on impacts in terms of the impacts with family and the sense of hopelessness that also has occurred within this of not feeling valued in who they are and as part of that broader community. And that's on top of already existing impacts with COVID. I know that a lot of the high schools in particular, and in general around probably the world, but I don't know, there's, the schools are struggling as well to really support kids and the increased needs that they have. So I think that's a key emphasis as well. Like Nowdaran is there primarily for the First Nations kids, but really it's about the betterment for all of the community. And I think there's programs that are for First Nations kids, but they can also be rolled out and applied in a really holistic way that can benefit kids that are struggling in all sorts of ways.
And then just as an extension of that, is there a perception there'll be an increased need leading into treaty negotiations as well? Like, is there a perception that's going to trigger a similar backlash and effect on wellbeing?
Definitely a need and an opportunity. As we all know, I think the media, there's often a lot of divisiveness or misunderstanding and misinformation. So I think there is a really great opportunity as well as the responsibility to think about broader cultural education of our shared histories and some of that truth-telling work that really brings everyone along on that journey to understand also, around this area, there's a really rich history with the gold mining that also, needs to coincide with understanding the greater histories that they can really sit together. So I think with that as well, and the work in the schools, a lot of this sort of cultural awareness, cultural diversity and equity sort of policies are really important, or training that comes with that. So there can be some of that deeper reflection and understanding of all our own cultural lenses that we come from and our own stories. And I know as well there's a Victorian strategy, anti-racism strategy that's mandated across Victoria. So also thinking about ways of culturally appropriate ways of integrating that in schools, but also in the broader community as well. And yeah, and thinking within council as well, what sort of change can be made internally would also be really great to think about. Yeah, how to create deeper and longer change and connected community.
Thanks. And then lastly, we heard from Kath in relation to the rollback and cuts to the flow program in CSC, and I'm just curious if Nalderung have noticed a change for the community that you service as a result of that. Is there an increased need? Is there that you've perceived? Maybe it's hard to perceive, and there is.
Yeah, as far as I know, I don't have the answer for that personally, and maybe Kath could talk to that because there is a deputation coming up on the 27th. But I know Kath was really advocating for that space, not just for First Nations kids, but for all of the youth that really needed it, and what a huge impact it's had on on their lives. Yeah. Right.
Zoe, you do a lot of great programs, so thank you for that. Just broadly, where else do you get your funding from? And you might not know this.
I know some, and the Kath and the directors can fill you in further detail. And also the annual report has it listed our key funders, but NIAA is one of the key funders who are federal funding for Indigenous advancement. And then, so that's great because that's secure. And then apart from that, a lot of it is smaller grant-based projects, and like what's been talked about before, often it's wanting new projects, often it's not about operations, often it's really hard to translate. The really wraparound connective support that Nowdarum provides is hard to sort of translate to some of the grants, and because Nowdarum isn't a service provider and isn't a traditional owner organisation and works in education, but not the education department. We sit externally. We kind of fall through the gaps in terms of some of that funding. So it's that, like a lot of other gathering places, which also Nowdarum isn't explicitly, it work in a really unique way. So it's often really hard to find, ongoing sustainable funding. So there's William Buckland Foundation who are funding work. There's also the state government, different Vic Health are funding a program at the moment. But yeah, they're often 1 year or 2 year long projects. And that continuity is also, what the First Nations youth keep telling us is really key, in building those relationships and being able to resource that.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Zoe? No. Zoe, would you mind please repeating the questions that you had so that I can just make sure that I've got them clear?
First of all, just ensuring that 12 is that 12 grand like part of that MOU as an ongoing amount? And is that replacing the previous 6 grand, so it's not 12 grand plus 6 grand, but just 12 grand.
All right.
And were there particular items in the budget request that 12 grand was targeted towards?
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much.
No worries.
Yeah,
Thank you.
cheers.
Thanks for waiting. All right, almost there. All my bits of paper. Finally on my list, Lawrence Abukata, speaking at representing cultural awareness. Thanks, Lawrence.
Hi, councillors, mayor and management team. I'm here to talk about a proposed cultural awareness policy, not as an abstract ideal, but as a timely practical tool that'll make Mount Alexander Shire stronger, fairer and more future ready. Right now, like many regional councils, we're managing increased diversity, First Nations leadership, migrants from across the globe, palm workers, LGBTQI plus families, and people relocating from the cities looking for community and connection. That diversity brings strength, but if not actively supported, it can result in exclusion, missed potential, and social tension. This policy helps us get ahead of that risk. It offers concrete actions, mandatory anti-racism and cultural competency training, so all staff, management and councillors are equipped to work respectfully with all residents. Advisory groups that bring voices of Indigenous, multicultural and LGBTQI+ and youth communities into our decision making. Targeted supports and multilingual access, especially for migrant workers, similarly the palm workers, and alignment with the Victorian Government Anti-Racism Strategy 2024 to 2029, meaning our council will be working in step with statewide goals and potential future funding opportunities. But here's the crux. It isn't just about values, it's about governance. Local governments that lead in diversity and inclusion see increased trust and participation from residents, fewer complaints and discrimination cases, stronger partnerships with health, education and community services, and importantly, resilience in the face of social change. It's a lot of money, but it's over 4 years. And I understand you're all very stretched and trying to keep everything within boundaries. But it's 150,000 over 4 years, including a part-time equity officer and training. The cost is modest, but in return, a more cohesive, engaged and equitable shire. Colleagues, this policy doesn't just respond to today's community, it prepares us for the community we're becoming. Without it, we risk falling behind other councils already embedding inclusion as a core business. With it, Mount Alexander can lead in integrity, in care and in strategic foresight.
Thank you. Excuse me, councillors, do we have any questions? Councillor Maddock.
Thank you, Lawrence, and thanks for the submission. It's a really impressive and thorough submission, so thank you for your good work there. When I think about this, the positives for diverse communities are evident to me, being more inclusive. But I'm wondering if you're able to share concrete examples of the benefits for an organisation in taking this on, and if you know of actual examples of councils or organisations adopting this and the positives that they've seen. And it's fine if you don't. I'll take it on notice. But
yeah, it's more about when issues take place, whether they're global issues, whether it was the Voice referendum and the issues of racism that Zoe talked about, that if we're not prepared and ready for those situations, then they spiral. And even around the Fringe Festival, there were two cases. There was a lot of disinformation going around. There were 2 cases of Instagram accounts where we're not sure yet who did them, but they made up stories about sort of a Palestine fictitious Instagram account that was saying that Jews owned the Campbell's Creek Centre down there, which is council owned, but quite anti-Semitic things were basically looking at the pro-Palestinian people in town in order to cause division. Then we get the Voice, the referendum. A lot of the First Nations people at that time really withdrew. And I think it's worth noting that how we can approach these things. I remember Palm Sunday. I think Toby, you were there a year ago. Also Phil and Uncle Rick said that he hadn't talked about the things that had happened around here, about the massacres. And this is part of our history. He also talked about the giant emu bark painting that is residing in the British Museum. And I thought, Man, wouldn't it be great if we all, as a community and council, asked for that back? You know, that would be a really important, amazing thing to work together on. But these are the ways that, you know, a policy is just a start. It's about everyone doing the training and then working as a team.
Councillor Walker.
Yes, thank you. Hello, Lawrence. First of all, a couple of things. Acknowledging what you said about the fake Instagram accounts and thanking you for contacting me so I could give the alert out to people around the fakeness of those accounts, and I think it helped to avoid an issue here in town. The second thing is just a question, because there has been some letters of support for your proposal come through. And just to check with you on it, because there's one we've received from the Australian Multicultural Foundation. Councils might not be aware, I got a message from Dimity Pfeiffer, the CEO of Loddon Campaspe Multicultural Services, that they've sent a letter of support through, which we haven't received yet. It hasn't, it came through late, and so that's just a technical thing. It did, and that was so just to acknowledge those, and I don't know if there's any other letters like that.
Okay, thank you. There are two letters of support. Yes, one from Dimity Pfeiffer from LCMS, Loddon Campaspe Multicultural Services. I believe there was a meeting earlier this week where in Bendigo, where there were about 100 people there, and it came up that Mount Alexander didn't have a cultural awareness policy, and people were sort of a little bit stunned. Municipal Association Victoria had in 2012 recommended that all councils should have one. I mean, we can be on the front foot, and even if the budget is an issue, like I know it's a lot of money, but it's over 4 years, there are ways that you could take this policy, pull out the funding bits, and just get it in there. Work towards it. Just make it a start. I'm sure everyone will feel a little bit relieved if we just work step by step towards it, rather than it being a cloud, because eventually it will have to happen.
Lawrence,
Yeah,
I'm just gonna pull you in there because we're just going way over. Are there any more questions from councillors for Lawrence? Councillor Maddock, thank you.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks for your answer, Lawrence. Just maybe it's a good thing to wrap up on. I grew up in very multicultural locations, and it felt very normal for me. It feels somewhat abnormal living here now with maybe less multiculturalism in that way. Do you think there's a increased need in this community specifically for this kind of thing, maybe compared to the rest of the state or metropolitan areas?
I just think we're in a growth stage. Bendigo has a lot more going on, and they had issues back a few when they were getting the mosque. If council's ready, it'll be a lot better if the issues come up. And this is it's about presenting a plan for the future.
Thank you. Any last questions for Lawrence? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you to everyone who has made it through with us, and thank you to everyone who came along to speak to their submissions. It is very, very different to hear from people directly than to read something. So it really is very valuable to us to hear from you. Just going through my actual agenda. We have no confidential items, so I'm comfortable closing this meeting. Thank you, everyone.